Okay, so you sent over a whole bunch of articles all about Kathleen Kennedy leaving Lucasfilm
Yeah,
and about who might be next in line to take over for her.
right.
Feels like you're trying to get ahead of the curve on this one.
It's going to be a huge turning point, I think, in
Mhm.
in Hollywood and in entertainment.
Yeah.
Whoever takes over at Lucasfilm is going to be steering a ship carrying all the weight of Star Wars.
Yeah.
And that's a lot to handle.
It's a whole galaxy far, far away of movies and TV shows and games and
Everything.
everything. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Where do we even begin?
I think we start with understanding the context of Kennedy's exit.
Okay.
Her time at Lucasfilm has been eventful, to say the least.
Yeah, the articles definitely paint a picture of some highs and some
Yeah.
lows. I mean, we can't forget that she brought Star Wars back with a bang with The Force Awakens.
Oh, yeah.
That movie shattered box office records.
Huge hit. Yeah. But it's been a bumpy ride since then.
Okay.
The box office numbers for the films that followed haven't quite reached those same heights.
Right.
And there's a graveyard of projects that were announced but never actually got made.
Yeah, and let's not forget about the fans.
Oh, yeah.
The Star Wars fandom is known for being very passionate.
Yeah,
And they haven't always been on board with the direction things have gone under Kennedy.
that's for sure. That's a really important point to bring up because it seems like one of the biggest challenges for whoever steps into Kennedy's shoes is going to be how to keep both Disney and the fans happy.
Yeah.
Talk about a balancing act.
Yeah. And speaking of successors, there are a lot of names being thrown out there.
Yeah.
You know, we've got Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, Kevin Feige from the Marvel Universe, even former Disney executive Peter Race.
Yep. Emma Watts.
Oh,
He was really a powerhouse behind big franchises like X-Men and Avatar back when she was at Fox.
Right.
And then there's Hannah Minghella, who has a background in both animation and live action.
Oh, wow.
Worked on things like, from Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs all the way to Jumanji.
Wow. So that's quite a diverse group.
It is.
It makes you wonder if Disney is looking for someone with a very specific background or if they're open to different approaches.
I think it's safe to say that they're looking for a really specific set of skills.
Okay.
Someone who not only understands the Star Wars universe,
Mm-hmm.
but also has a vision for where it can go in the future.
Right.
Someone who can keep the creative side happy
Hmm.
and also balance that with the business demands,
Hmm.
and can keep the big name directors on board and can navigate this world of entertainment that's always changing.
Sounds like they're looking for a Jedi master of filmmaking.
Maybe a Yoda of the entertainment industry.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe. But before we jump into who might be the best fit for this humongous job,
Mm.
maybe we should take a look back at Kennedy's time at Lucasfilm.
Okay.
What were some of the things she did really well and some of the challenges she faced?
That's a good point. We talked about The Force Awakens breaking records, but the articles also mentioned Mandalorian as a huge win for Kennedy.
Oh, for sure.
You know, it was a gamble to bring Star Wars to television, but it really seems to have paid off.
The Mandalorian was a brilliant move, I think. It brought a fresh, kind of almost Western feel to the Star Wars universe.
Mhm.
And it really leaned into this idea of a lone hero, which really resonated with a lot of the fans.
And we can't forget about Baby Yoda,
Oh, yeah?
or Grogu as we now know him.
Yeah.
He was a global sensation overnight.
Absolutely. So Kennedy's willingness to, experiment with different formats and different tones, I think that was a big part of what she accomplished.
Okay.
But, not everything was perfect.
Right.
Some of the articles dig into those creative clashes that were happening behind the scenes, and it sounds like it wasn't easy to keep all those famous directors happy.
It's almost like a revolving door of directors.
Yes.
You know, you have Phil Lord and Christopher Miller who were let go from Solo.
Right.
And then there was Patty Jenkins, whose Rogue Squadron film got shelved.
Yeah, and those were some high-profile departures that caused a lot of talk in Hollywood. The articles kind of suggest that maybe there was a bit of tension between how Lucasfilm wanted these projects to be and how the directors wanted to approach them creatively.
Yeah, and of course we can't ignore the elephant in the room, the sometimes complicated relationship between Lucasfilm and the Star Wars fans.
Definitely.
It seems like Kennedy and Disney got a lot of criticism for choices they made in casting
Yeah.
and a perceived shift in focus.
Yeah, there was definitely a portion of the fandom that felt like the newer films had strayed too far from what made the original trilogy so special.
Right, so it sounds like Kennedy's time at Lucasfilm was a mix of some groundbreaking successes and some very public struggles.
It was.
So where does that leave us as we're looking for her successor?
Well, it leaves us with a very specific set of challenges.
Okay.
The next person to lead Lucasfilm has to figure out how to make the studio happy while also respecting the legacy of Star Wars.
Right.
And they got to figure out how to keep all those fans happy who have been very vocal about what they want for the franchise.
So it's not just about finding someone who can make a good Star Wars film.
No.
It's about finding someone who can navigate this whole complex world of the Star Wars universe.
Absolutely.
Both the creative side and the business side.
Exactly. And as we go forward, I think we should keep these challenges in mind when we're talking about who the potential candidates might be.
Okay.
Who has the experience, the vision, and the skills to steer this ship.
All right, let's dive into those candidates.
Okay.
Where do we begin?
Well, we've already talked about Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni.
Right.
Their names are at the top of pretty much everyone's list.
Yeah, they're the heavy hitters.
Yeah.
But let's unpack their qualifications a little bit more. What makes each of them such a strong contender?
Well, Favreau has an incredible track record.
He does.
I mean, he's directed huge hits like Iron Man, which basically launched the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Right.
And he's shown that he really gets the Star Wars world with The Mandalorian. He seems to have this talent for capturing what people love about these big franchises while also bringing something new and exciting to the table.
And he's already working within the Disney system, so he knows how things work there.
Exactly.
But some of the articles raise the question of whether he'd even want the job.
Right.
I mean, he's making a ton of money as a director, and he probably doesn't want the headaches that come with running an entire studio.
Yeah, it's completely different to be a creative visionary versus like a studio executive.
Right.
It's a whole other ball game.
And what about Filoni?
Filoni.
And do her strength?
Filoni is practically swimming in Star Wars knowledge.
Okay.
He was trained by George Lucas himself on the Clone Wars animated series.
Wow.
And he's been deeply involved in so many Star Wars projects since then.
So he's like a walk and talk in Wikipedia entry.
Exactly. And he's clearly passionate about the franchise.
Yeah.
He's known for taking existing Star Wars mythology and expanding on it in these really creative and interesting ways.
And he's proven that he can work in both animation and live action.
Yes.
Which is crucial for Star Wars these days.
Absolutely. But there are some questions about whether he has the experience you need to run a studio as giant as Lucasfilm.
Right.
It's a huge leap from overseeing a TV series to managing an entire franchise.
Right. And he's known for being very outspoken.
He is.
That kind of passion can be great, but it can also be a double-edged lightsaber in a high-stakes corporate environment.
It can definitely be a factor to consider.
Yeah. One article even suggested that Disney might have already chosen Filoni
Interest.
and that they're planning to announce it at Star Wars Celebration in April. Now, that would be something.
That would send shockwaves through the fandom.
It would, but it's just speculation at this point.
It is just speculation.
Okay, so we've got Favreau, the blockbuster director with that Mandalorian magic touch.
Right.
And we've got Filoni, the Star Wars encyclopedia, with this fiery passion for the franchise.
Right.
But what about some of the other names that have been mentioned?
Well, the name that just keeps coming up is Kevin Feige, the guy who built the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Right. Now, that's a really interesting possibility. I mean, he's turned Marvel into this global phenomenon.
He has.
Could he do the same for Star Wars?
It's a good question. Feige has a proven track record of building these massive, successful cinematic universes.
Yeah.
And he's a self-proclaimed Star Wars fan.
Okay.
But there are some serious questions about whether he could manage both franchises at the same time.
Right. He's already in charge of a huge network of films and TV shows for Marvel.
He is.
Adding Star Wars to that might be a recipe for burnout.
Yeah, it's a lot. And
Yeah.
some people wonder if his approach to filmmaking, which, relies heavily on those interconnected storylines, and the humor would even work for Star Wars.
Yeah.
It's a different kind of universe. It's more mythic and operatic, less about superheroes making jokes and more about the Force and destiny.
Right. Star Wars has a different tone and feel than Marvel.
It does.
It's not just about action and spectacle. It's also about these bigger philosophical themes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So while Feige is obviously incredibly talented, his success with Marvel doesn't mean he'd automatically be successful with Star Wars.
So Phage is a long shot, but still a possibility.
He's a possibility.
What about some of the other names?
Well, we've got Emma Watts, who has a very impressive resume from her time at Fox.
Right. She was the president of production there
She was.
and oversaw some massive franchises like X-Men and Avatar and Deadpool.
Yep.
She definitely knows how to handle big budget effects heavy films, which is a must for Star Wars.
Absolutely.
Okay.
She's known for her leadership skills, her ability to wrangle big personalities, and she has a great eye for talent.
But she's never actually worked on a Star Wars project. So she'd be coming in with a fresh perspective,
Yeah.
which could be good or bad depending on how you look at it.
It's a trade-off. On one hand, she might bring new ideas and a different approach. On the other hand, she might not have that deep understanding of Star Wars lore that some fans would expect.
So Emma Watts is a strong contender, but with some question marks?
She is.
Who else is in the running?
Another interesting candidate is Hannah Minghella.
Oh, yeah. She's currently the head of feature animation and live-action family films over at Netflix.
She is. And she's got a really diverse portfolio. You know, she's worked on everything from Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs to Jumanji to Goosebumps.
Wow.
So she clearly has experience with both animation and live action, which could be a huge advantage for Star Wars.
And she's proven that she can connect with family audiences, which are a key demographic for Star Wars.
For sure. Plus, she's known for her collaborative leadership style, which could be a breath of fresh air after some of the creative clashes that happened under Kennedy.
But she's tied up with Netflix right now.
She is.
Would she be willing to leave for Lucasfilm?
It's hard to say, but a job like this, leading the Star Wars franchise, that's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that might be hard to resist.
True, Star Wars is the holy grail of science fiction franchises.
It is.
So we've got Emma Watts, the seasoned studio executive, and Hannah Minghella, the animation and family film expert.
Yes.
Are there any other names we should be thinking about?
There are a couple more, but they might be considered less likely.
Okay, I'm all ears. Let's hear about these dark horses.
One name that's been floating around is J.J. Abrams.
Wait, really? He already directed 2 Star Wars films, The Force Awakens and The Rise of Skywalker.
He did, and The Force Awakens was obviously a huge success.
It was.
But The Rise of Skywalker got a much more mixed reaction.
Yeah, to put it mildly.
Yeah, and Abrams has talked about how difficult it was to direct those films. Plus, he's got his own production company to run.
Right, bad robot.
Exactly. It's hard to imagine him wanting to jump back into the Star Wars pressure cooker.
It would be surprising, to say the least.
It would.
Okay, so J.J. Abrams is probably out. Who else is there?
There's been some talk about Peter Rice.
Okay.
The former chairman of Disney General Entertainment Content.
Oh, yeah, he was pushed out by Bob Chapek before Bob Iger came back as CEO.
Exactly. He's got a really solid track record in both television and film. And he was key in developing the X-Men franchise back when he was at Fox.
Okay, but wouldn't it be weird for him to come back to Disney after being fired?
It's possible.
Yeah.
But we've seen Bob Iger bring back other executives after they were forced out.
Right.
So it's not completely out of the question.
So Peter Rice is a wild card.
He is.
But potentially an interesting one.
He is. Definitely a name to keep an eye on.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about Kathleen Kennedy's legacy at Lucasfilm and the challenges facing whoever takes over for her.
We have.
And we've started looking at the strengths and weaknesses of the possible candidates.
Right.
What a whirlwind.
It's a complex and fascinating situation.
It is.
Whoever takes on this role will be shaping the future of one of the most beloved franchises in history.
No pressure, right?
Right. But before we get too caught up in the details of each candidate, let's step back for a second.
Okay.
And think about the bigger picture.
Right.
The Star Wars franchise is facing challenges that are bigger than just finding a new leader.
Okay. I'm intrigued. What do you have in mind?
Well, one of the articles pointed out that Star Wars isn't the only big franchise that's dealing with change in the world of entertainment today.
Right.
Mission Impossible is coming to an end. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is showing signs of fatigue. Harry Potter is moving to television. And even James Bond is in a state of flux.
It's like there's a major shift happening in Hollywood.
There is.
These long-running franchises are all trying to figure out how to adapt to new ways of watching things and evolving audience tastes.
Exactly. We're in a period of transition and uncertainty for many of the giants of the entertainment industry.
So what does that mean for Star Wars?
It means that the next leader of Lucasfilm can't just be someone who keeps things the same.
Okay.
They need to be a trailblazer. They need to be able to see what's coming next and adapt to those changing tastes and find innovative ways to keep Star Wars relevant and exciting.
They can't just rely on nostalgia or keep telling the same old stories with the same old characters.
Exactly. The next leader of Lucasfilm needs to be a visionary, someone who can respect the past while also embracing the future. Someone who can create new myths and legends that will capture the imaginations of audiences for years to come.
That's a tall order. But I have a feeling the right person is out there somewhere. Someone who gets the magic of Star Wars and has the vision and the leadership to guide it into a new era.
I agree. And as we keep going, let's remember that. Let's look beyond the headlines and all the speculation and focus on what makes Star Wars so special.
Okay.
The heart of the story, the characters, the themes.
The things that make Star Wars more than just a franchise. The things that make it a mythology.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And as long as those things are protected and nurtured, I think Star Wars will continue to do well no matter who's in charge.
So it's not just about finding the right leader. It's about finding the right stories.
Yes.
Stories that resonate with audiences. Stories that expand the Star Wars universe in meaningful ways. Stories that capture that sense of wonder and excitement that has captivated fans for decades.
I couldn't agree more. And as we move on, let's look closer at what qualities and skills the next leader of Lucasfilm will need to have. What should we be looking for in a Star Wars boss?
Okay, let's get down to brass tacks. What makes a great Star Wars leader?
Well, first and foremost, they need to really get the Star Wars universe.
Okay.
It's not enough to just be a casual fan. They need to know the stories, the history, the characters, all the details of the Force.
They need to be able to tell the difference between a Wookiee and a Wampa.
Absolutely.
A Jedi and a Sith.
They need to be fluent in Star Wars.
They do.
But beyond just knowing the facts and figures, they also need to truly love the franchise.
Right. They need to understand why Star Wars is so important to so many people,
Yeah.
why it has this hold on our imaginations.
Exactly. And they need to be able to turn that passion into a clear vision for the future.
They need to be able to see where Star Wars can go next.
Yes.
What new stories can be told, what new characters can be introduced.
Right. It's about finding that balance between respecting the past and looking ahead to the future.
It's about walking that tightrope between what's familiar and what's new.
Exactly. They need to give fans what they want, but also surprise them with something fresh and unexpected.
It's about finding that perfect blend of nostalgia and originality.
And of course, they need to be able to manage a huge, complicated franchise.
Right, we're talking about films and TV shows and video games and books and comics and theme park attractions.
Everything. It's a multi-billion-dollar operation across all kinds of media.
Yeah, this isn't just about making movies. It's about running a global empire.
It is. It requires someone with incredible organizational skills.
Right.
Someone who can handle a ton of different things at once and keep everything moving smoothly.
Yeah.
It also requires a certain level of toughness.
Yeah, the pressure of Star Wars is intense.
It is.
The expectations are so high and the scrutiny is relentless. This person will need to be able to handle the heat.
They will. And they'll need to be a strong leader who can build a talented team and create a space where people feel comfortable sharing new ideas.
Right, because at the end of the day, Star Wars is a team effort.
It takes a village to create a galaxy.
Exactly. So we're looking for someone who's a Star Wars expert, a visionary leader, a skilled manager, someone who can perform under pressure, and a team builder.
That's it.
That's a pretty long list of requirements. Are you sure anyone can do all of that?
It's a tough job, no doubt.
Yeah.
But I believe the right person is out there. Someone who can step up to the challenge and lead Star Wars into a new golden age.
So how do we find this Jedi Master of filmmaking? Should we start placing bets on our top contenders?
I think it's time to go back to our list and really think about the strengths and weaknesses of each candidate based on what we've just talked about.
All right, let's break down those candidates and see who has what it takes to rule the galaxy far, far away. So we have this whole group of potential candidates, all right, each with their own strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah.
It's kind of wild to think that whoever lands this job is going to be shaping the future of Star Wars for a long time to come.
Absolutely. This is not just about picking someone who can make a hit film. This is about finding someone who truly understands what Star Wars represents.
Yeah, it's about the impact it has on culture and storytelling and on, just our imaginations as kids. And
Totally. Star Wars is way more than just a movie franchise. It's like this whole mythology that has inspired generations of filmmakers and writers and artists and fans.
Fans too, yeah. It really resonates with people on like a deep personal level.
It does.
I was reading an article about how George Lucas was initially rejected by several studios when he first pitched Star Wars.
Right.
They thought it was too risky, too, out there.
Wow.
It's hard to believe now, isn't it?
It's crazy. It just shows that even the most groundbreaking ideas sometimes face resistance. It takes a real visionary, a real leader to see the potential in something that other people might dismiss.
Yeah.
And maybe that's exactly what Star Wars needs right now. Someone who's not afraid to shake things up, to challenge the way things have always been done, to really push the boundaries of what's possible within the franchise.
Someone who can honor the legacy of Star Wars, but also take it in bold new directions.
Exactly.
It's a tough balance to strike.
It is. And finding that person won't be easy. There are so many factors to consider. The stakes are incredibly high.
Speaking of those factors, the articles mentioned a few specific challenges that whoever takes over Lucasfilm will have to deal with.
Yeah.
What were some of the things that stood out to you?
Well, one of the biggest hurdles, I think, will be navigating that tricky relationship between Lucasfilm and Disney.
Right.
Star Wars is a crown jewel in the Disney empire,
Yeah.
and they're going to want a say in how it's managed.
Yeah, that makes sense. Disney's a giant corporation.
Huge.
They want to protect their investment.
Right, yeah.
But you don't want to stifle creativity by having too much corporate involvement.
Exactly. The next leader of Lucasfilm is going to need to figure out how to balance the creative vision for Star Wars with the business side of things.
Right.
You know, what Disney wants.
Right. It's like walking a tightrope.
It is.
Keep the studio happy, but make sure that the films and shows are true to what Star Wars is all about.
And then there's the fans.
Oh, yeah.
I've talked about how passionate they are.
Extreme.
And they're not afraid to voice their opinions, especially online.
Sometimes it feels like the fans have as much power as the studio
It's true.
when it comes to influencing where Star Wars goes.
Yeah, the next head of Lucasfilm is going to need to find a way to connect with the fans in a meaningful way. You know, they need to listen to what the fans are saying, build trust, and create a sense of shared ownership over the future of the franchise.
It's about respecting the legacy, but also recognizing that the fandom itself has changed over the years.
Absolutely. It's a very diverse group with a lot of different perspectives.
And then there's the challenge of just managing this massive and complicated Star Wars universe.
Oh my gosh, it's huge. It's this galaxy of interconnected stories and characters and planets and timelines.
It's a lot.
It can feel overwhelming even for the most die-hard fans.
It can.
There's just so much to keep track of.
There is. The next leader of Lucasfilm is going to need to have a deep understanding of Star Wars canon. You know,
Yeah.
they'll need to be able to oversee the creation of new stories that fit in with what's already been established without messing up the existing lore or making the fans mad.
It's like being handed a giant jigsaw puzzle and having to figure out where all the pieces go.
Exactly.
Right.
And then on top of all that, there's the pressure to keep making hits.
Yeah.
Star Wars is a global phenomenon,
Right.
and the expectations for new content are through the roof.
There's no room for error.
No.
Every new film, every TV show is going to be scrutinized by millions of fans worldwide.
The next leader of Lucasfilm will need to be able to handle that pressure.
Right.
They need to be able to deliver those high-quality Star Wars experiences that will please both the fans and the critics.
It's a daunting task, to say the least. It's enough to make even a Jedi Master sweat.
But, you know, despite all these challenges, I think Star Wars is in a good place.
You're optimistic. What makes you so confident?
Because I believe in the power of storytelling.
Okay.
And Star Wars, when you get right down to it, is all about the power of storytelling. It's about those universal themes that connect with people on a fundamental level. You know, the hero's journey, the battle between good and evil, the power of hope and redemption.
Those are stories that never go out of style. They speak to everyone no matter what generation you come from.
Exactly. And those are the elements that will continue to resonate with audiences no matter who's running Lucasfilm.
So you're saying that while finding a replacement for Kennedy is important, it's not the only thing that matters.
Right. The future of Star Wars depends on more than just the person at the top.
Okay.
It depends on the creativity and passion of all the people who bring that galaxy far, far away to life.
Right. The writers, the directors, the actors,
The artists, the composers.
their fans even.
Yeah. Yes. Even the fans. It's a collaborative effort. It's like a whole orchestra of creative minds working together to create something truly special.
And you're confident that together they can continue to create Star Wars stories that will inspire and entertain for generations to come.
I am.
That's a hopeful thought, but let me play devil's advocate for a second.
Okay.
The articles also pointed out some of the problems facing the entire entertainment industry.
Right.
Franchises are struggling to figure out how to navigate this new world of streaming.
Yeah.
And audience expectations are changing so quickly. It's like the rules of the game are being rewritten.
It's true. We're seeing a massive change in how people are watching and experiencing entertainment.
Yeah.
And it's having a ripple effect on the way stories are told and franchises are run.
Right.
The old way of doing things doesn't really work anymore.
The articles mention that Mission Impossible is coming to an end, that the Marvel Cinematic Universe might be running out of steam.
Right.
Harry Potter is moving to television, and even James Bond is going through some major changes. It's like we're witnessing a changing of the guard in Hollywood.
It's a time of transition and uncertainty for a lot of the biggest franchises out there.
And Star Wars is right in the middle of it.
It is.
So what does all of this mean for the future of the franchise?
It means that the next leader of Lucasfilm can't just be someone who maintains the status quo.
Okay.
They need to be a pioneer, Someone who can anticipate what's coming next and respond to the way people's tastes are changing and find innovative ways to keep Star Wars relevant and exciting.
They can't just keep relying on nostalgia or recycling the same old stories and characters.
They need to be a visionary.
Yeah.
Someone who understands and respects the past, but is also looking ahead to the future. Someone who can create new myths and legends that will capture people's imaginations for years to come.
It's a huge challenge.
It is.
But I have a feeling the right person is out there somewhere.
I do too.
Someone who understands what makes Star Wars so special and has the vision and leadership to guide it into a new era.
I agree. And as we continue this deep dive, let's keep that in mind. Let's look beyond all the rumors and speculation and focus on what truly makes Star Wars so great.
Okay.
At the heart of the story, the characters, the theme.
The things that make Star Wars more than just a movie franchise, the things that make it a mythology.
Exactly. As long as those things are protected and nurtured, I think Star Wars will continue to be successful no matter who's in charge.
So it's not just about finding the right leader, it's about finding the right stories. Stories that connect with people, stories that expand the Star Wars universe in new and interesting ways. Stories that capture that sense of wonder and excitement that has drawn fans in for decades.
I couldn't agree more. And as we go forward, let's take a look at the specific qualities and skills that the next leader of Lucasfilm will need. What should we be looking for in a Star Wars Supreme moment?
All right, let's get down to business. What makes a great Star Wars leader?
Well, the most important thing is that they need to have a deep understanding of the Star Wars universe itself.
Right.
It's not enough to just be a casual fan. They need to know the history, the characters, the intricacies of the Force.
They need to be able to tell a Wookiee from a Wampa.
Absolutely.
A Jedi from a Sith.
They need to speak fluent Star Wars.
They do. But beyond just knowing the facts and figures,
Right.
they also need to have a real passion for it.
Yes.
They need to understand why Star Wars is so important to so many people.
And they need to be able to take that passion and translate it into a compelling vision for the future.
They need to be able to see where Star Wars can go next, what new stories can be told, what new characters we might meet.
That's right. It's about finding a good balance between respecting the past and embracing the future.
Yeah.
They need to give fans what they're looking for, but also surprise them with something new and unexpected.
It's about finding that sweet spot between nostalgia and originality.
And of course, they need to be able to manage a huge and complex franchise.
Yeah, we're talking multiple movies, TV shows, video games, books, comics, theme park attractions.
It's a multi-platform, multi-billion-dollar operation.
Yeah.
This isn't just about making movies. It's about managing a global empire.
It takes a lot to be able to handle all of that.
It does. It requires someone with exceptional organizational skills, someone who can manage multiple priorities at once and keep everything running smoothly. And it requires a certain amount of resilience.
Right.
You know, the Star Wars pressure cooker is not for the faint of heart.
No, the expectations are sky high, and there's a ton of scrutiny.
For sure.
This person is going to need to be able to deal with that.
And they'll need to be a strong leader who can put together a talented team and foster a creative environment where people can share new ideas.
Right.
Because ultimately, Star Wars is a collaborative process.
It takes a village to raise a galaxy.
Exactly. So we're looking for someone who's a Star Wars expert, a visionary leader, a skilled manager, a pressure player, and a team builder.
That's a really demanding job description. Are you sure anyone can check all those boxes?
It's a lot to ask for, no doubt. But I believe the right person is out there somewhere. Someone who can rise to the challenge and lead Star Wars into the new golden age.
So how do we find this Jedi master of filmmaking? Should we start placing bets on our top candidates?
I think it's time to revisit our list of potential candidates and think about their strengths and weaknesses in relation to the challenges we've just discussed.
Okay, let's take a closer look at those candidates and see who has what it takes to rule the galaxy. So we've talked about how to lead Lucasfilm.
Right.
You need someone who's not just a Star Wars fanatic.
Right.
They have to be a strategic mastermind.
Right.
Someone who can manage people and projects and handle all the pressure.
Tons of pressure.
A galaxy of expectations.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a tough role to fill.
Right.
But as we take a closer look at the potential candidates, I think some of them really stand out as having that right mix of skills and experience.
Yeah, and it's not about finding someone who ticks every single box.
No.
It's about finding the person with the best combination of strengths to tackle the specific challenges that Lucasfilm's going to face.
And who can really inspire those creative teams
Yeah.
to create those compelling Star Wars stories that connect with audiences all over the world.
Okay, so let's go back to our list of contenders. We've got Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, Kevin Feige, Emma Watts, Hannah Minghella, J.J. Abrams, and Peter Rice. What a group.
I know, what a lineup.
Where do we even start with this group?
Well, based on what we've seen in the articles, Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni seem to be the front runners.
Yeah, they do have a lot going for them. FR's got that blockbuster experience, he's got the success of The Mandalorian, and he's proven he can work well within the Disney system.
Yeah, and Filoni has that deep understanding of Star Wars lore.
Yeah.
He's got that passion for the franchise and the respect of a lot of the fans.
But we also talked about some potential problems.
We did.
Favreau might be happy just directing.
Yeah, he might not want the top job.
And Filoni may not have the experience needed to run a studio as big as Lucasfilm.
That's true. And, one of the articles suggested a really interesting solution to this.
Oh, okay.
What they called a power duo.
Like a dynamic force wielding both sides of the force.
Exactly. Think of it like James Gunn and Peter Safran over at DC Studios.
Okay.
One focuses on the creative vision, and the other one handles all the business and management stuff.
A creative visionary paired with a seasoned executive.
Yes, and the article specifically suggested a Favreau-Filoni partnership.
Wow. Now that would get Star Wars fans really excited.
It would.
They would get the best of both worlds.
It's a very interesting idea. Favreau could oversee the development of the films and the shows,
Okay.
while Filoni makes sure everything stays consistent and protects that Star Wars universe.
And together, they could present a united front to Disney,
They could.
ensuring that Star Wars stays fresh and exciting,
Right.
while also meeting the studio's needs.
It's a very compelling idea.
It is.
But of course, we can't forget about the other candidates.
Of course not. Kevin Feige's name keeps popping up.
It does.
He's the architect of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
The mastermind.
Yeah.
His achievements are incredible.
He's a master at building huge, successful franchises, and he's a self-proclaimed Star Wars fan.
He is. But the articles also highlighted some reasons why he might not be the best fit for Lucasfilm.
Yeah, like what?
Well, he's already super busy with Marvel Studios.
Right.
Adding Star Wars on top of that could just be way too much for one person to handle.
It could be. And some people wonder if his style would even work for Star Wars.
That's right. Star Wars has a very specific tone.
It does. It's more mythic and operatic.
Yeah.
It's not just about all these interconnected plot lines and clever dialogue. It's about the Force and destiny and the battle between good and evil.
Exactly. It's a different kind of storytelling.
It is.
It's more about that epic scope and those deeper themes.
Okay.
And there's a worry that Feige's approach might focus too much on how everything in the Star Wars universe is connected,
Okay.
which could mean that each individual story loses its own unique identity.
So Feige's got an amazing resume,
He does.
but it's not clear if he's the right fit for Star Wars.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. So how about we move on to Emma Watts?
Okay.
She's got a lot of studio experience from her time at 20th Century Fox.
Right. She oversaw some huge franchises there.
She did like X-Men Avatar and Deadpool, and she's known for being a strong leader and for her ability to attract top talent.
But we did talk about how she doesn't have any direct experience with Star Wars.
That's true, and that could be a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah, it's a double-edged lightsaber.
It is.
She might come in with fresh ideas, but she might not fully grasp Star Wars lore and the culture.
Yeah, it's a trade-off. Her experience and leadership skills would be really valuable, but that lack of Star Wars experience could be a problem.
There's Hannah Minghella.
Yes,
She's got experience in both animation and live action,
she does.
which seems really important for Star Wars these days.
It does, and she's proven she knows how to connect with families.
Right, a key demographic for Star Wars.
Absolutely.
But she's at Netflix right now.
She is.
So would she even want to leave for Lucasfilm?
It'll be a huge change.
It would.
But leading the Star Wars franchise,
Right.
that's a pretty amazing opportunity.
It is. So we've got Favreau and Filoni, potentially, as a team phage, as a maybe Watts with her studio experience, and Minghella with her background in animation and family films. What about J.J. Abrams and Peter Rice?
Well, Abrams has already directed 2 Star Wars films.
Right.
And after the mixed reaction to The Rise of Skywalker, I don't think he'd want to come back.
Yeah, and he has his own company to run Bad Robot.
It would be a big surprise to see him back in the Star Wars director's chair.
It would.
And Peter Rice, well, he's an interesting one.
He is.
He has the experience and the connections.
Yeah.
but his history with Disney might make things a bit awkward.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine Bob Iger welcoming him back after what happened with Bob Chapek.
It's not impossible, but it would definitely be a bold move.
So it looks like Favreau and Filoni, maybe as a team, are the most likely candidates.
They seem to have the right mix of skills, experience, and passion.
But you never know, Disney might surprise us.
They could. But no matter who ends up in charge, the future of Star Wars is bright.
I agree. Star Wars has captured the hearts of audiences for generations, and I have no doubt it will continue to evolve and thrive.
Star Wars is a timeless franchise. It's about the power of storytelling, the victory of good over evil, and the enduring appeal of that galaxy far, far away.
And as long as those core elements are there, I think Star Wars will continue to inspire and entertain for many years to come.
I agree completely.
Well, we've covered a lot in this deep dive.
We have.
We've explored Kathleen Kennedy's legacy, the challenges facing the franchise, and what qualities her successor will need. We've also analyzed the potential candidates, weighing their strengths and weaknesses.
It's been a fascinating conversation.
It really has, and as we wrap things up, I'm feeling optimistic about the future of Star Wars.
Me too. Star Wars is a timeless franchise. It's a story about good versus evil, the power of stories and the magic of a galaxy far, far away.
And as long as they keep those core elements alive, Star Wars will continue to inspire and entertain us for years to come.
Couldn't agree more.
So as we end this deep dive, here's a thought for you. What kind of future do you see for Star Wars? And who do you think has the force to make it happen?
Great question.
Thanks for joining us on this epic exploration of the Star Wars universe. May the Force be with you.